This phone trip, obviously, if you've been listening to it, is about the independent companies. The reason I chose an independent pathway is that the Bell system was fairly predictable and uniform in rural areas. That doesn't mean it wasn't fascinating in places like New York, but rural areas, there was good stuff, but it wasn't really new and different. If you wanted to learn and experience new things, traveling through the countryside, independent was the way to go. And so this trip was designed to touch as many independent areas as possible. Now, if we just happened to drive by a Bell System payphone, we'd pick it up and see what there was to see. And so we did record Fredericksburg, Shenandoah National Park, Martinsburg, West Virginia, Hagerstown, Maryland. I think we stopped, but didn't think there was anything to record there. It's a Crossbar 5 and T-carrier environment.
Hello?
So anyway, after Nutropoli, we set our sights on another area of Commonwealth Telephone in Pennsylvania, right next to the border with New Jersey, where we knew we wanted to stop in Belvedere and Oxford, New Jersey, to record the West Jersey Telephone Company. So on our way to the Commonwealth Telephone area, we took a direct route that skirted Allentown, because we knew Allentown was a Bell System area. But on that road, as we were avoiding Allentown, we did find a Bell of Pennsylvania payphone. It had a 767 number, and 767 is listed as Slatington, Pennsylvania. So here we are with the Bell System phone. Let's see what we get.
This is 215-767-9950.
Number 1, ESS. All right, let's hear the recording for partial dial.
Please hang up, and if you'd like to make a call, try it again. If you need help, please hang up and dial the operator. This is a recording. Please hang up to make a call.
Hey, I know her. That's the Allentown lady. She has been heard on the Allentown Crossbar Tandem.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 21511.
The Allentown Centralized Intercept.
I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number in your directory and dial again. The number you have reached is not in service. If you remain on the line, an operator will answer. Thank you. This is a recording.
So the point is, I know this lady's voice from the recordings, and here she is on the CSS. Well, now we're looking at the instruction card at this phone, and it's very unusual because the instructions for dialing long distance are different depending upon what area you're trying to call. Usually, if they are still using the old-fashioned cord board, you cannot dial long distance, and the instruction card will say, for all long-distance calls, dial 0. If they have a more modern system, like TSPS, which handles the 0+ calls and the coin calls, the collect, all of that, then it's going to say, please dial all your calls. But here, it says, if you are calling one of the following areas, and then it gives a list, dial your call. Otherwise, dial 0 for operator. There was a list of areas. I wish I had recorded to the tape which ones they were. Certainly New York City and Philadelphia were included, but that's all I remember. Since 212 was on the list, we decided to try 516, the Long Island area code.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. The number.
Nope, you can't call everywhere. Let's try calling Chambersburg, 717-263.
sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. 21511. We're sorry.
21511. You know what that means? That means that this is one of the ESSs in Allentown. 767 is supposed to be Slatington, which is 15 miles away, but apparently the Slatington zone is a separate zone served by the Allentown Wire Center. That means that this phone line is about 15 miles long, which explains why it sounds pretty distorted and has a very mid-rangey frequency response. Meanwhile, 21511 is an ID that is supposed to be for the Allentown Crossbar Tandem, but this is one of the two ESSs in Allentown. Why is it calling itself 21511? That seemed like a mistake to me at the time. I later learned that the ESSs in Allentown were pressed into service as auxiliary switching systems for long distance, apparently because the crossbar tandem was getting overloaded. It started with this ESS, Control Group 0, being an auxiliary tandem for Allentown, and then by 1977, the second ESS, the one that we heard with the recording ID 00 back in New Tripoli, that one also became an auxiliary tandem. I've never seen that before, where you have two ESSs supplementing a crossbar tandem. They must have had a real problem. And the thing is, places that use this ESS for long-distance calls to Allentown only send certain codes to the ESS while sending other codes to the crossbar tandem. And that means if you have them both calling themselves 21511, some switchman is not going to know which one he has because you have two machines with the same ID. Anyway, let's call one of the areas that is permitted Philadelphia.
Deposit $1.70, please, for 3 minutes.
Okay, Smith.
No, wait, you put 3 dimes in, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, I put 3 dimes.
No, wait, just a minute. Okay, do you want to put it all back in again except for the 1 dime?
Right.
Sir?
Yes,
Yeah, was that 2 dimes you put in, or was that a nickel and a dime?
that was 2 dimes.
Oh, okay, the one didn't register. Thank you.
The number you have reached, MA70070, is not in service. In area code 215, please check the number and dial again. MA70070 is not in service. In area code 215.
Oh my, this is something very cool. Although it sounds rather mundane, I'm sure, but this is what is called coin zone. How can I explain what coin zone is? Okay, back in the days, before there was such a thing as 0+ dialing, before the days that long-distance calls could be dialed from coin phones, there were major metropolitan areas, such as New York, Boston, Los Angeles, that had a complex multi-zone local charging system. They wanted to be able to handle coin calls to the entire city and a lot of the suburbs. But there were zones, several of which were more than a 10-cent call. So coin zone was used. With coin zone, you dial the number you want to reach, and your call first goes to a cordboard operator, and she's looking at a set of jacks that says 10 cents, 15 cents, 25 cents, whatever it might be. So she answers your call, and depending upon what that strip of jacks is labeled, she will say,
15 cents more, please. Thank you.
or,
25 cents more.
or,
30 cents more.
etc. Now, because Allentown has a number 1 ESS, they can pretty easily implement CoinZone, even though it wasn't designed for places like this. What Allentown doesn't have is TSPS, to make long-distance calls dialable from coin. So they took advantage of the fact that CoinZone is relatively easy to set up in number 1 ESS, as long as you still have an old-fashioned cord board, which here they do. But there are no extended local zones here, so they instead used it for long-distance calls to certain high-volume areas, such as to Philadelphia and New York. So instead of things like
30 cents, please.
you hear
$1.70, please.
yikes, but this is a long-distance call. Let's make a call to Brooklyn to hear the Brooklyn SAIS.
$1.85, please, for 3 minutes. Thank you. Operator 206, the number you're calling.
230-1032.
What is that again?
230-1032.
Thank you.
Repeat again.
The SAIS operator really messed up there. She first keyed 0. That makes the system give the operator's version of the report. And then she didn't key 7 digits, so she keyed 0 plus some wrong string of digits. That's why it said,
Repeat again.
normally when they screw up, it says,
Please repeat to the special operator.
okay, close enough. We had CoinZone in my part of Long Island through 1974. After that, it was replaced with a more modern system called TSP, which was supplied by Hempstead Tandem 3.
Well, looks like it isn't going to give me... Oh, it is. Okay. About a week ago, I finished recording CoinZone, and I decided that I had enough tapes of it, because I knew it was eventually going to be ripped out, and it's now ripped out. So, I'll prove this. I'll dial 694-9970. You know, we're really lucky that I recorded this, because no one else did. If I hadn't decided to record it, it would be gone.
15 cents more, please, for the 35 minutes. Sorry it is busy. Would you try call again?
Certainly.
TSP coexisted with the cord boards from 1967 or so until 1974. During that time, TSP took the 0 plus calls like collect, third number, and long-distance coin calls, while the cord boards continued to handle just dialing 0 for assistance, busy line verification, and CoinZone. 1974 is when the cord boards were completely discontinued, and so the CoinZone function went to TSP. Now you'll notice that on this call, the call is going through while the operator is on the line. She can even hear the outcome.
15 cents more, please, for the 35 minutes. Sorry it is busy. Would you try call again?
While on the previous 2 calls through Allentown CoinZone, that does not happen. And the reason is that traditional CoinZone, which uses the old cord board, operates in such a way that first you go just to the operator whose only job is to get you to deposit the money, and then when you have, she pulls her cord and the call goes through. When she pulls her cord, the call will go through unless your phone is hung up. So if you can induce her to pull her cord when the required coins are not in the phone, and then end up not hanging up, That would constitute phreaking, the kind that leads to free calls without a toll record being made. So I'm going to be discussing briefly some of the hacks that we used to do with CoinZone. What I'm talking about is something that we experienced up until 1974 in New York, and then we briefly touched upon it again in the Allentown area in 1976, and then after that, we never saw it again because it was dependent on those old plug-in jack boards. So the hacks I'm talking about have nothing to do with present time. That said, let me show you some of the tricks. First from New York in 1974, and then I'll show you one from Allentown. Now, in CoinZone's original arrangement, the dime that you used to get a dial tone and dial the number would still be in the phone once you reached the operator. And so she would say, 15 cents more, 25 cents additional, please, that sort of thing. And it was important to get that dime returned, which she could do. But if you said to the operator, please return my dime and pull your cord, that might be a little suspicious. So we would embellish that request by asking for some additional things. This was recorded from the Crossbar 5 in Westbury, Long Island. The operators are in Hempstead.
$0.25 more, please.
Operator?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm testing. Can you return? Okay, now collect, please.
Collect?
Yes. All right, now press your ring key. Okay, now check out, please.
Yep.
The collect key doesn't do any harm once there's no coin in the phone thanks to the previous return. But you know that was kind of elaborate, what with the social engineering, so there was a simpler way, which was to just pretend that you didn't have the change, let the operator return your dime and then hang up, but then when she pulled her cord, pick up the phone again. You could usually hear a subtle click while the phone was hung up, which corresponded to the operator pulling her cord. While she was on the line, she held your line. But as soon as she pulled her cord, you were back to the usual maybe 3/4 of a second of on hook to disconnect. So when you heard the subtle click of her pulling the cord, that's when you picked up the phone again. And the call would go through, with no coins in the phone.
This time dialing 694-2500.
This was recorded from the Ivanhoe 6 Crossbar 1 in Hempstead, Long Island. I'm calling Harrison, New York.
30 cents more, please.
30 cents?
30 cents more.
I'll try again later. Can you return my dime?
General Foods. General Foods. Hello, operator.
On panel and crossbar 1, after you talk to the operator on CoinZone, your call completes via a tandem that your crossbar 1 or panel office PCI'd to. PCI is an ancient protocol for communicating between central offices, and in crossbar 1 and panel offices, CoinZone had to be handled by a tandem that would accept PCI. On these Hempstead examples, that tandem is Suburban Tandem, which is a panel sender tandem in the famous 204 2nd Avenue building, you know, the one that had the fire. Anyway, on these CoinZone examples, the pulsing is hard to discern. Suburban dial pulsed to the Harrison Crossbar 5 on that call. On this next example, Suburban is going to revertive pulse to a Bronx ESS.
$0.25 more.
Wait, 25 cents more?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't have the change right now. Can you return my dime? I'll try
Yeah.
later.
Two, one, two, 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 zero.
The fastest way to dispense with the CoinZone cordboard operator was to pretend to be another operator who had answered the call at the same time as she did. These trunks appeared on multiple operators' boards, and when they would ring, whoever could get them would get them. Sometimes two operators would plug into the trunk at the same time, and that would cause one of them to unplug thinking the other was going to get it. All I had to do was to pretend to be the other operator, and that would make the operator pull her cord and let the call go through. My dime would still be in the phone, so I would get the call for 10 cents instead of what the total amount was supposed to be. In these examples, I'm calling things that don't complete anyway.
$796. $0.25 more, please?
So the hack of pretending to be another operator didn't result in a free call. It resulted in a 10-cent call when it was supposed to be 40 cents or whatever. Until during the last month or two of CoinZone's existence, they changed the way the calls were handled at the cordboard.
I was just informed that the Manhasset A board has been ripped out completely. Levittown should be next to go. That Hempstead coin zone is going to be ripped out soon. And that, in addition, they're going to start returning the dime immediately on calls to an A board.
And that included CoinZone calls, so they would return your dime and then ask for the full amount. So during the last month or two of CoinZone's existence, you could actually get a free call by pretending to be another operator. But CoinZone in Long Island ended shortly after that. However, in 1976 in Allentown, we are calling from a dial tone first phone. You can dial the number without putting a dime in. So when you first go to the operator, there's no coin in the phone. If you want to get a call through for free, all you have to do in 1976 in Allentown is just be another operator. If you listen carefully, you'll hear Dave cracking up right after I do this, and you'll notice that I don't hang up in the early part of the call. I let the test line complete its process because I know there's not going to be a toll record.
$1.85 for the first three.
That's all we recorded from Allentown. We tried to avoid Allentown, but we ended up recording it anyway, and we found something unique. The last time I ever saw a coin zone with real operators in my life. There was an automated coin zone system in 1978 where New York Telephone took advantage of the easy way that you can set up coin zone on ESS in order to create a kind of automated coin zone. It only worked on ESS, it didn't use operators, and these hacks didn't apply. That lasted at least through 1986, but that's a subject for some other recording. The next stop on the August 1976 phone trip is Penn Argyll, Pennsylvania, a step in the Commonwealth Telephone Company area. Now some technical notes. The way the calls went through to Philadelphia and New York is surprising. The ESS office we're calling from is listed in 1975 as an auxiliary switching system, but this call goes through in a way that is not explained by that. Here's the call to Philadelphia,
Thank you.
which takes a carrier trunk to a crossbar tandem, which then uses the 4M to get to the Philly office.
The number you have reached, MA7.
The 4M used there is,
I'm the recording.
what recording?
2152.
Right. Now similarly, the calls to New York
Thank you.
go out over carrier to a crossbar tandem, which then uses the New York 4M to get to the destination. What is that crossbar tandem we're going out on carrier to? That shouldn't be there. We should either be going to the Allentown crossbar tandem, which shouldn't be on carrier, or directly to New York and Philly. Instead, there's an XBT in the middle that we're using carrier to get to. I ran this by Bill Acker, and he said that one possibility was that the crossbar tandem that we're reaching on carrier is the Allentown crossbar tandem in this very same building, and that as a temporary arrangement, sometimes they would link carrier trunks end to end. In other words, this call might be going out from the ESS to some other location, maybe in Philadelphia, where it is then looped back, trunk to trunk, on a carrier coming back to the Allentown crossbar tandem. He said that in transition processes, sometimes they will do that. Sounds absolutely crazy to me, but it is a possibility. Another possibility is that there is some Philadelphia crossbar tandem which is being used as an intermediary here in order to take the load off the Allentown crossbar tandem. So this ESS may be going out through some Philadelphia tandem as a way to just take the load off the Allentown crossbar tandem. That too would be a temporary arrangement. At the time I spoke to Bill Acker, neither of us had looked it up to see that in 1977 both ESSs were working side by side with the crossbar tandem, indicating they really did have some sort of a traffic overload on the XBT that they were trying to relieve. So if that's the case, it may be that this mystery crossbar tandem on carrier is something in Philadelphia that had the capacity. One reason that theory makes sense is that at this time in Philadelphia, the panels were in the process of being replaced, and that was freeing up capacity on whatever crossbar tandem handled their outgoing camera function. So it might be that very same tandem is being used here. A tandem which, by the way, would not have direct end office trunks in Philly because that's not its main function. It could be sending the Philly calls through the 4M.
I'm the recording.
And as I listen to the tape, the carrier noise doesn't get any louder when the mystery XBT connects to the Philly 4M. So anyway, That's all we know, which isn't much, but I had to say something because people who've heard the long distance series can tell exactly how these calls are going through, and it doesn't make any sense unless one of those two odd scenarios is in effect. The call through Westbury Coin Zone had to be reconstructed, and it shouldn't be used as a reference. I've reconstructed it according to my best guess, but I don't think I have enough information to know how it ought to sound.